The Philadelphia 76ers have made a huge addition, and I do mean huge, as all 275 pounds of Kenny Lofton Jr. have joined the Sixers organization on a two-way contract. We got this announcement from ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski early in the afternoon today, where he tweeted, "The Philadelphia 76ers are signing forward center Kenny Lofton Jr. on a two-way contract," sources tell ESPN. Lofton played parts of his past 2 seasons with the Memphis Grizzlies. Lofton adds to the Sixers' frontline depth. So Kenny Lofton is a guy that has made his way pretty much widely known in the NBA circles, one of the more unique players across the entire basketball world because of his size and frame and style of play. It is not something that people are super familiar with. I am a believer in his game. We have not seen a ton of him at the NBA level to this point. In his career thus far, he's played just 275 minutes at the NBA level, but he has done some damage in the G League. This guy who won G League Rookie of the Year, he's had his moments where he shined and still has taken advantage of his limited opportunities at the NBA level. So to dive in fully and touch on his stats, I'll kick things off with the NBA stats here. As I mentioned, not a significant sample size. This isn't something that you can have any massive determinations off, but you can still see the numbers of him making his impact. Slightly concerning that there was a little bit of a dip from that rookie to sophomore year as far as playtime comes, but not nearly enough to have any sort of legitimate concerns, and that has much more to do with the Grizzlies as a team than Kenny Lofton Jr. specifically, and obviously that they did have to release him and need to use that roster spot. He became a free agent earlier this year, and the Sixers jumped on it by doing this. Now, I did want to mention that in the process, the Sixers did have to release Javonte Smart from his two-way deal, that they only have 3 spots to use up on two-way contracts. Javonte Smart was the odd man out in this situation, so that brings the Sixers two-way deals to Terquavion Smith, Ricky Council IV, and Kenny Lofton Jr. Now, I do hope Javonte Smart sticks around. He is a guy, fun little player out of LSU who can shoot the ball, create a little bit, and looked really good in Summer League, so would not mind him sticking. Would not surprise me if another team scoops him up, but I would make the argument that that trio of two-way talents that the Sixers have is now the most dynamic trio of any two-way grouping of any team in the league. That Terquavion Smith and Ricky Council IV are each balling down with the Bluecoats, and Kenny Lofton Jr. is now going to provide a new element to that team. Now, it has been a little frustrating that we have not seen any of these guys at the NBA level yet with Terquavion Smith and Ricky Council IV. That does come back to the Sixers' depth. That for all the trade talks we have, for all the conversations about the missing piece, things like that, the bottom line is this is already a deep basketball team. Now, when you think about a player like Robert Covington, who's a legitimate role player, a guy who's proven it at the NBA level for several years at this point, starting right here in Philly, he has not carved out his niche yet, that he's still scratching and trying to get on the floor, earn more minutes. Or even a guy like Furkan Korkmaz, who at one point was a regular rotation piece on the Sixers and a quality role player. He's not even getting on the floor. And obviously that happened over time, and this is nothing new, but that is still telling to if talent of veterans like that are not getting the opportunity, that the two-way guys and these rookies, these young players are even further down on the pecking order. Now, obviously, these Sixers have been very healthy so far this season, and that is a good thing. Starting to see some of the injuries sneak in now. Nicholas Batum battling a hamstring injury. D'Anthony Melton had a little thigh contusion that he had to leave the game the other night. Things like that are starting to pop up, so it would not surprise me if there is an extended period of time where a guy needs to miss time, that we see an opportunity for a guy like Kenny Lofton or Terquavion Smith or Ricky Council IV to get an opportunity. But until that time, that these guys are going to be staying ready at the G League level. Now, to bring it back to Kenny Lofton specifically, let's talk about his G League stats, because this is a sample size that we can draw a little more conclusions off. He was the G League Rookie of the Year in his rookie season, obviously, and his all-time averages at the G League level are 24.0 points per game, 11.5 rebounds, 2.0 assists. In the 2022 to 2023 G League Showcase, he averaged 25.2 points per game, also along with 9.7 rebounds, shot 4.3 3-point attempts per game, shot 54.4% from the field, 1.1 steal. Not a lot of verticality, no real blocking ability in Kenny Lofton, but still some real deal numbers. And what's even more impressive to me is there's only been one opportunity where he's really had a chance to shine at the NBA level, this being the last game of his rookie season with the Memphis Grizzlies. That with seeding decided, with players resting, there was no need for the Grizzlies to really go for it, so they did give some guys a chance, Kenny Lofton being one of the prime beneficiaries of that, and he took every bit of the advantage of it, dropping 42 points, tallying 14 rebounds, shooting 17 of 25 from the field. Now, obviously, I don't think that he is a 40-point-per-game scorer on an every-night basis, but the fact that he's proven to be capable of doing that at the NBA level, I don't think should be overlooked. That so often we get lost in these conversations of potential or this guy could grow into this. We have hard evidence of watching Kenny Lofton Jr. doing this at the NBA level. Now, I spoke a little bit about kind of his unique game. If you want ask me to put kind of a player comparison on it, the closest guy that I can come up with is Zach Randolph. A little bit of a throwback there. Michael Beasley, kind of a little bit similarity there, but he is very unique. Obviously, his frame, 275 pounds, 6'7". He is a big dude. That this is a dude that is huge. He's wide, and he uses every bit of it. That he will wear on you in the post. He will back you down. He will use his size. There's some cool footage of that floating around from way back of him. Like, this is not an example of a guy who got to the NBA and gained a bunch of weight, a la Zion Williamson. This is an example of Kenny Lofton being like this his whole life, that this is how he's built, this is how he played, even dating back to his high school days at Louisiana Tech, where he became a fan favorite, largely because of the way that he plays and his frame, and it is impactful at the same way. That you can find some footage of him matching up with Chet Holmgren, which is very funny to watch. Obviously, two drastically different body types there, Chet being as slender as he is and lanky in frame, and then Kenny Lofton really giving him the business by just backing him down, using his weight, throwing his body around, and it works. That he will use every ounce of his frame, and it's impactful to other defenders. It is not fun to guard a guy that weighs 275 pounds and is just backing you down, using that body weight. That wears out a guy. That takes out a lot. Now, a couple other stats that I did want to get into with Kenny Lofton specifically, and that I think are valuable and where he fits in this, is his rebounding ability. That obviously he's not going to be a high flyer by any means, that he's not going to be skying for these big rebounds, but he does the work. That he gets position, he boxes out, and small sample size once again, but he ranks in the 85th percentile of bigs in offensive rebounding rate, and he's also in the 94th percentile in missed free throw rate. So kind of impressive there, and that being rebounds off missed free throws, and then rebounds, offensive rebounds, obviously. So the offensive rebounding is a big deal. That when you have a guy that is capable of getting an offensive rebound, more than likely it leads to an easy bucket. That when you're in that position, and Kenny Lofton's obviously a guy who's going to be under the basket getting these and kind of using his weight, you're more likely than not going to get an easy putback. And those are free opportunities that are created. There is a little playmaking in his game as well. I'm honestly surprised. I thought the assist numbers would be a little higher from his time in the G League, but every time I've seen him play, you can tell he has a good basketball instinct, that it isn't this guy just solely focused or tunnel vision on scoring and rebounding. Like, he's a hooper. He has a feel for where to be, where the ball needs to move, making the right basketball plays. He's a high IQ player that I quite like that about him a lot, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that in the overall sphere. Now, he is still limited. Like, obviously, we know the frame is not going to work in every single matchup, and he's still 21 years old. That we're not sure what the finished product of Kenny Lofton Jr. is ultimately going to be as a player. But this is a great example of the Sixers continuing to work the margins, add to the bottom of the roster, and make this team better without breaking the bank. So adding Kenny Lofton to this trio of two-way players is a great option for this team. It is a potential future piece that he could grow into something worth keeping around. Like, the best case scenario, obviously, we don't expect him to turn into a superstar. This is not something that moves the margin from the Sixers to that standpoint. But if you flash forward 3 years from now and Kenny Lofton's capable of being a backup center at the NBA level, this is a worthwhile move right here. At the minimum, this is going to be a guy that people love to watch, that will be hyped in those few minutes that he does get in the game, and will be thoroughly entertained by him on the floor. At the best, this guy could grow into a real deal contributor for this Sixers team. He's a different style of player that they have had that I can remember, and really across the league, that he is kind of in a league of his own for what he's capable of doing and kind of his stylistic ability to play basketball. So I am happy that the Sixers did make this move. I am a little upset Javonte Smart will no longer be with the organization. Hopefully he can stick around and have a full G League contract, that nobody swoops him up, but it would not surprise me if another team sneaks in there and goes and grabs Javonte Smart. But the bottom line is I do think Kenny Lofton Jr. is the better overall basketball player, and it's a better use of resources when you think about both Terquavion Smith and Ricky Council IV already kind of competing for that guard spot, that young guard spot. So having a different position and a big man in Kenny Lofton Jr. is worthwhile to bring around. And especially on a Sixers team that has struggled to have legitimate backup centers for years now, for most of the entire Joel Embiid era, finally hitting a pretty good point at that, with Mo Bamba and Paul Reed, of course, doing some solid impact there. But we've been through the Greg Monroes, the Amir Johnsons, the Boban Marjanovic, Dwight Howard, the list goes on and on. DeAndre Jordan, the corpse of DeAndre Jordan, all these guys that simply did not have it. It's a good use of organizational resources to continue investing in that, or guys that can grow into that. So to me, I've been very impressed by the Sixers organization's recent attention to working the margins with this, that never being satisfied with what the roster is, using these minimum deals, these two-way contracts, coating the bottom of the roster with high-quality talent. That is what successful organizations do, and the Sixers have done a much better job of it of late. So I'm very impressed with their ability to do that. I'm very happy that Kenny Lofton Jr. is the guy that is now on this team. As I mentioned, at the worst, he's going to be a thoroughly entertaining player who's electric to watch on a nightly basis. He's an old-school basketball player. People are going to love him, and I can't wait to see him on the actual floor. I want to hear what you guys think of Kenny Lofton Jr. in the comments. As I mentioned, that I am fully on board with this. I'm excited to see what he brings to the team, but I do want to hear from you guys as well. So make sure that you drop a comment in there, smash that subscribe button, and don't forget to leave a like. And I will talk with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.